All right, let's get right into it. For most of us, the market can feel like, well, just total chaos, right? It's a puzzle with a million moving pieces. But what if I told you there's a way to access a level of intelligence that sees the entire game board from a completely different perspective? Today, we're going to break down a system that's designed to give you exactly that, a real institutional grade edge. So let me ask you something, and be honest. Does it ever feel like you're trading with a rearview mirror strapped to your face? Seriously, it feels like all your tools are just telling you what already happened. You're constantly reacting to the past, while the real opportunity is screaming down the highway ahead of you. And that really gets to the heart of the problem, this fundamental split in how people see the market. On one side, you've got the old way, lagging indicators. That's the rearview mirror, just confirming the past. But on the other side, well, that's what we're here to talk about, dealer physics. This isn't about looking back. It's about getting into the market's engine room to see the forces that literally compel it to move. So yeah, that's what it boils down to for so many traders. You're effectively trading in the dark. You're using tools that, by their very design, are always one step behind the real action. It's an impossible situation. Okay, so how do you flip the script? How do you actually get ahead? Well, you have to stop playing the game of predicting price and start understanding the forces that move it. It's a total shift in mindset. You stop looking at the market as some random squiggly line on a chart and start seeing it for what it is, a powerful physics engine. And here it is. This is the core idea, the absolute foundation. Forget about market sentiment or the news of the day for just a second. Price doesn't move because people feel bullish or bearish. A lot of the time, price moves because huge players, we're talking about the dealers, are literally forced by their obligations to hedge massive options positions. Their hands are tied. These aren't suggestions, they're requirements. And their actions create these huge predictable waves in the market that this system is built to see. This is exactly what we mean by dealer physics. And look, this isn't some fuzzy theory. This is the structural, mechanical reality of how the market works. When these big players are forced to hedge their risk, they have to buy or sell in huge quantities. That action creates these incredible, predictable zones. Think of them like financial gravity wells that suck the price in, or giant invisible walls that can stop a price move dead in its tracks. But here's the catch. To actually see these forces, you can't just have a neat idea. You need data you can bet on. You need an engine that tells the unvarnished truth, around the clock. Because without clean data, everything else is just guesswork. So, what do you think is the biggest, most overlooked weakness in almost every retail options tool out there? It's this hidden flaw, a vulnerability that most people don't even know exists. And it has the power to make all their fancy analysis completely worthless, usually right when it matters most. Simple, the data lies to you. As soon as that closing bell rings, trading volume dries up, and a super important piece of the puzzle, implied volatility, or IV, gets totally corrupted. It's filled with noise. And that garbage data makes just about any analysis you do after hours completely and fundamentally broken. And this is where GexPro builds its first line of defense. It's called the IV Integrity Shield, and it's brilliant. It's a fully automated three-step process. First, the system knows when the data gets corrupted after hours, and it flags it. Second, it doesn't just show you that junk. It instantly switches to a clean, verified model from the close. And third, it maintains what it calls a golden record, a pristine, accurate snapshot of the market's real state. So when you sit down to plan your next move, you're working with the truth. Now, you gotta understand, this kind of protection doesn't run on your average web server. The whole thing is powered by a dedicated GPU-accelerated engine. It's an absolute beast. It's constantly crunching institutional-grade data, doing these incredibly heavy calculations to map out complex forces like gamma and vanna in near real time. This is the kind of raw horsepower that, until now, was pretty much exclusively in the hands of the big Wall Street firms. Okay, so once you have that powerful truth-telling engine in place, you can start to do something really cool. You can actually begin to map these invisible forces, this financial gravity, but not just on a flat chart. You can map it across the dimension of time itself. Just look at the difference here. On the left, that's what everyone else sees, a standard, flat 2D chart, a snapshot of one day. It tells you where a price level is. But on the right, that is the 3D temporal strike hive. And honestly, this is a complete game changer. It's not just looking at price, it's mapping dealer pressure across time, across all the different expiration dates, so you can see where that financial gravity is at its absolute strongest over the next month. So what is this hive actually telling you? It's showing you the gravity wells that are actively pulling the price towards a certain number. It's revealing the massive walls of dealer positions that can stop a rally cold. It highlights the magnets, showing you where that dealer pressure is building up day after day. And maybe most importantly, it can signal something called dealer exhaustion. That's the point where the big players are almost done hedging and the risk of a sudden, violent price flush goes through the roof. Right, so you've got all this incredible data, this multidimensional map. That's amazing. But now what? Because the biggest challenge for any trader isn't getting data. It's turning that absolute fire hose of information into a single, clear, confident decision. And this is a deep truth that anyone who's ever traded knows in their bones. People don't fail because they're missing a chart or an indicator. They fail from analysis paralysis. They're just buried under a mountain of data, with no time and zero clarity on what to actually do. This brings us to the final and maybe most critical piece of the puzzle, the AI-powered narrative verdict. This thing synthesizes millions of data points from 12 different simulation models. But, and this is super important, it's not just some language model guessing. It uses hard logic filters to spot sophisticated scenarios, like dealer traps, where what the dealers say they're positioned for doesn't match where the money is actually flowing. It can even spot divergences with huge trades happening in dark pools. Then it takes all that complexity and translates the market physics into a simple, plain English summary. And its most important job, if the physics and the money flow don't agree, it tells you to stay out. It flags a no-trade zone, acting as a crucial safety net. So the verdict doesn't just leave you hanging, it flows directly into a clear execution plan. First, you get that narrative verdict. Next, a built-in Black-Scholes engine, which is the gold standard for this stuff, recommends the best strategy for the situation. Then it gives you the specific strikes and expirations to look at. And finally, it uses something called the volatility risk premium, or VRP, as a kind of confidence score. Think of VRP as the fear premium in the market. When it's high, it can mean the risk-reward for your trade is much more favorable. Okay, so when you stack all of this up, the physics-based logic, the bulletproof 24/7 data, the 3D time-based map, and that clear AI verdict, what you end up with is something that, frankly, feels a lot like an unfair advantage. I mean, let's just put it side by side. It's night and day. Standard tools, they're running on weak servers with data that breaks after 4 p.m. GexPro, a dedicated GPU engine with the IV integrity shield. The old tools just describe what happened. GexPro is predictive. It explains the why behind a move. You get static charts versus a clear AI-powered verdict. You get a single-day snapshot versus a 3D map of the future. It's not just a better tool, it's a completely different way of seeing the market. So that really leaves us with one final question to think about. In a market that's dominated by these massive structural forces, why would you ever want to guess where the price might go when you can finally see where the money has to flow?